Krishna 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 Hare Krishna 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 Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Surabhyaya Namaha Om Surabhyaya Namaha Om Surabhyaya Namaha Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langayate girim yatkripatamaham bande sigurum dinataranam yatkripatamaham bande srigurum dinataranam. Hare Krishna. Welcome to our Srimad Bhagavatam class, continuing from Canto number 5, chapter 26, entitled The Hellish Planets. And today we're reading text number 39, which is the verse before the last verse of this chapter and of this canto. Srutva Stulam Tatha Sukshmam Rupam Bhagavato Yatihi Stule Nirjitam Atmanam Shanai Sukshman Dhiya Nayad Iti Srutva Stulam Tatha Sukshmam Rupam Bhagavato Yatihi Stule Nirjitam Atmanam Shanai Sukshman Dhiyan Shanai Sukshmam Dhiya Nayaditi. Something wrong in the last line. Srutva stulam tatha shukshmam rupam bhagavato yatihi stule nirjitam atmanam. One second. Shanai Shukshmam Dhiya Nayaditi Srutva Stulam Tatha Shukshmam Rupam Bhagavato Yatihi Stule Nirjitam Atmanam Shanai Shukshmam Dhyanayaditi. Bolo. You don't have it? Go ahead.
Shrutva stulam tata sukshmam.
Shrutva stulam tatha sukshmam. Rupam bhagavato yati.
Stule nirjitamatmanam.
Stule nirjitamatmanam.
Shanay sukshmam dhyanayediti.
Shanay sukshmam dhyanayediti.
Shrutva stulam tata sukshmam. Shrutva stulam tata sukshmam. Rupam bhagavato yati. Rupam bhagavato yati. Stule nirjitam atmanam. Stule nirjitam atmanam. Shanay suksham dhyanayediti. Shanay suksham dhyanayediti.
Shrutva, after hearing of, from the disciplic succession, stulam, gross, tatha, as well as, sukshmam, subtle, rupam, form, bhagavataha, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, yatihi, a sannyasi, or devotee, stule, the gross form, nirjitam, conquered, atmanam, the mind, shanai, gradually, sukshmam, the subtle, spiritual form of the Lord, dhiya, by intelligence, nayat, one should lead it to, iti, thus. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki. One who is interested in liberation, who accepts the path of liberation and is not attracted to the path of conditional life, is called yati, or a devotee. Such a person should first control his mind by thinking of the Virata Rupa, the gigantic universal form of the Lord. Jai. I was looking for a clock. No clock. This house is timeless. Such a person should first control his mind by thinking of the Virata Rupa, the gigantic form of the Lord, and then gradually think of the spiritual form of Krishna, Sat Chit Ananda Vigraha. After hearing of both forms, thus one's mind is fixed in samadhi. This is the formula how to fall into samadhi. By devotional service, one can then realize the spiritual form of the Lord, which is the destination of the devotees. Thus, his life becomes successful. Everyone can repeat after me. One who is interested in liberation, who accepts the path of liberation and is not attracted to the path of conditional life, is called yati, or a devotee. Such a person should first control his mind by thinking of the Virata Rupa, the gigantic universal form of the Lord. And then gradually think of the spiritual form of Krishna, Satchit Ananda Vigraha. After hearing of both forms, thus one's mind is fixed in samadhi. By devotional service, one can then realize the spiritual form of the Lord, which is the destination of devotees. Thus his life becomes successful. Purport. It is said, Mahatsevam dwaram ahur vimukte. If one wants to progress on the path of liberation, he should associate with Mahatmas or liberated devotees, because in such association there is a full chance for hearing, describing, and chanting about the name, form, qualities, and paraphernalia of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, all of which are described in Srimad Bhagavatam. On the path of bondage, one eternally undergoes the repetition of birth and death. One who desires liberation from such bondage should join the International Society for Krishna Consciousness and thus take advantage of the opportunity to hear Srimad Bhagavatam, as you're doing, from devotees, and also explain it to propagate Krishna consciousness. Translation again. One who is interested in liberation, who accepts the path of liberation, and is not attracted to the path of conditional life, is called yati, or a devotee. Such a person should first control his mind by thinking of the Virata Rupa, the gigantic, universal form of the Lord. And then gradually think of the spiritual form of Krishna, Satchit Ananda Vigraha, after hearing of both forms. Thus, one's mind is fixed in samadhi. By devotional service, one can then realize the spiritual form of the Lord, which is the destination of devotees. Thus, his life becomes successful. So this is Shukadeva Goswami speaking to Parikshit Maharaj after, because this is the last chapter and practically the verse before the last verse of this chapter, last chapter of the 5th canto. So Shukadeva Goswami has been very elaborately, in great detail, describing what is the very complex arrangement, very difficult to understand, cosmic manifestation of the material world, of this creation, referred to as the Virata Rupa. It's a very nice point being made by Srila Prabhupada here, how for one to begin to understand and to appreciate the Supreme Lord, or for one to know about God, the principle or the concept of God, one is recommended to study the material universe, to study and realize how this whole cosmic manifestation is beyond our ordinary understanding. It is inconceivable. Even the material world is inconceivable, how it is functioning. Even this body we're sitting in right now is inconceivable. Even a very simple atom or virus is inconceivable, as we can see. For the last 1 year, we are battling with one virus, and it is turning the whole world upside down. So the whole material cosmic manifestation, as described in the Bhagavatam, and the scientists today are still searching and still, in many ways, speculating about so many things about this universe. For example, they have what they call, anyone who has studied a little bit of science, the black hole theory. You've heard of that? Black hole theory.
Doing research on Vedic cosmology.
Oh, is it? You should be here giving classes. So, the black hole, there's a theory that, they know that the planets are moving at a very high speed, and that it's all heading towards a big black hole. We know from the Bhagavatam that actually, when the Lord creates through his expansion of Mahavishnu, then from the breathing of the Lord and from the pores of his body emanate innumerable universes. And within each universe there's innumerable planets. It's like totally inconceivable. Then he enters, as we know, as Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, fills each universe, or each universe half with the sweat of his body. That's why the ocean is salty. Yeah. Then he lies down as Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, and then a further expansion is Kshirodakshaya Vishnu. So when the Lord, every time he exhales, the universes become manifest. And then Bhagavatam explains, just like we exhale, but then we inhale. We inhale. So when we inhale, so when the Lord inhales, then all the universes, So it means that actually, if the scientists are able to somehow observe that we're going towards a black hole, this is the material universe being withdrawn. There's a creation, expansion, then there is annihilation, gradual annihilation. Not everything happens at the same time, just like this body also. It's not that, of course, some people leave immediately, but most people leave gradually, this body. So, even our modern scientists, I believe, only discovered which planet? Pluto. Venus? Which one? Only in the 20th century. So many planets are yet unknown, actually, to scientists. It means that actually Krishna's creation is bewildering, inconceivable. Some little things we can understand, but so many things, even things that seemingly are meant to be obvious, such as the position and the distance of the moon and the sun and how they rotate, all these things. There is a very detailed presentation or explanation actually in this particular canto of the Bhagavatam. So Prabhupada makes this very important statement here, how we should study this material manifestation. We should try to understand how wonderfully it is working, functioning. And simultaneously, we should also try to hear about the spiritual form of the Lord. By hearing about and studying these two levels of reality, the material cosmic manifestation and the spiritual realm, then gradually it means that actually all of our material activities, everything that we do in this material world, when we connected with the ultimate reality of Godhead, then gradually, a little bit similar to how we can gradually come to understand, to some extent, the nature of the cosmic manifestation, we can also gradually, by Krishna's mercy only, come to understand about the spiritual reality, the spiritual form, nama, rupa, guna, qualities, lila, activities. All of these are meant to be heard, are meant to be read. That was a verse yesterday, by reading, by hearing, by speaking. Then our consciousness gradually will become purified, and by the mercy of Krishna, we can gradually realize the transcendental form of the Lord. And this is referred to here by Srila Prabhupada as samadhi. Samadhi is not, as we generally conceive, a kind of motionless position that a yogi takes when sitting, but actual samadhi is doing, speaking, hearing, doing all of these activities that are in connection with Krishna, that are in connection with Krishna's energies, and that are meant to reconnect us ultimately. And Prabhupada also directly mentions in the purport that this is why everyone should join the Hare Krishna movement, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, to give everyone this opportunity, because the vast majority of people in the world, I'm sure you've all noticed, don't attend Bhagavatam class. Don't even know there's a Bhagavatam class going on somewhere. Don't even know about the Bhagavatam, for that matter. And therefore, these are the two natures. We can either choose to be connected with only the external material world, in which case we remain conditioned because we are not understanding the purpose of this creation. We're not understanding what is our role in this creation. We're not understanding actually who we are, our identity. And therefore, we continually remain locked in the false conception of life, which is described, of course, in the Bhagavad Gita, this ahankara, false identity, false attempt to enjoy and to control this material world. And it just doesn't work, because that's not, we're not Ishvara. We're a little bit Ishvara, but our nature is to be Prakriti. There is the again, as described in the Bhagavad Gita, and that's why Bhagavad Gita is also unknown to majority of people, is giving us the preliminary understanding. There is Prakriti, Para-Prakriti, spirit, soul, and Apara-Prakriti, material nature. And this is the beginning of knowledge, actually, to understand the difference between matter and spirit, and to know how matter is very, very intricate, very complicated, very mysterious, and actually beyond our proper understanding. And we are also meant to study and to hear about our spiritual nature. When we speak about dharma, this is also not understood, obviously, of course, by the majority of, let's say, non-devotees, but even amongst our own devotees, we generally lack this connection, this simple understanding of dharma in terms of being our nature. Dharma means actually what is natural. What is natural to us. What is natural to us. And therefore sometimes people say that to bring solution to the modern problems of today, there is only a spiritual solution. Of course, that is, I would say, partially true. Partially true, because without the spiritual dimension or understanding, we cannot resolve the complexities of this material world. But actually Bhagavatam and Vedic knowledge teaches us that there is simultaneously, if we understand nicely, properly, how dharma means our nature. So Bhagavatam explains that we must, and this is the point being made here also, we must simultaneously understand what is our spiritual nature as eternal servants of Krishna, and we must also understand what is our material nature, what is meant to be our natural material position, our natural material, as Krishna describes in the Bhagavad Gita also, duty, prescribed duties. Human life is meant to perform yajna. Animals don't perform yajna. They don't know what yajna is. We have the opportunity to understand what is yajna, and yajna means actually engaging oneself in prescribed duties. And those prescribed duties are simultaneously at the material and the spiritual level. Our prescribed duties materially falls within the whole system of Varna and Asrama. That is actually Krishna's very extraordinary arrangement for a perfect arrangement within society. That's why Narada Muni in the 7th canto of the Bhagavatam speaks about perfect social order, perfect society. Some people will say, how can there be perfection in the material world? The material world is imperfect. Actually, the material world is perfect because it's created by Krishna. There's a perfect arrangement. There's a perfect laws of nature. We call it laws of nature. When we go against the laws of nature, when we try to contradict the laws of nature, then it backfires, because we can't do that. Therefore, the purpose in the human form of life is to understand how these different energies, both the spiritual energy and the material energy, are functioning. and how to reposition ourselves so that we can harmonize with these two natures. Modern day society is in a total chaos, total mess, because we have, out of ignorance, just disassociated ourselves with our spiritual nature. That's obvious. And it's also obvious we have disconnected with the material nature. We've been exploiting material nature so badly that actually we are on the verge of destruction and extinction. Most people are totally unaware, for example, that on a daily basis, there's so many things, but on a daily basis, between 150 and 200 species are actually becoming extinct on a daily basis. And this has been going on for quite a few decades. It is inconceivable. Just like these buildings and these developments are made in... Don't mind. I'm sitting in your house. It's not your house anyway, it's Krishna's house. But when we develop, as we are doing in the cities, all of these wonderful arrangements, we are simultaneously, just like I was thinking, they have such nice clear water. How deep is a bore well here? Do you know? No idea, you should know. Somebody sent a small picture, you might have seen it. There's a picture of someone...
Should be 1,000 feet.
1,000 feet, yeah. That's not unusual. Yes. In Bangalore, when we were doing our Dharma Gogram Yatra last year, near Bangalore, Tumkur, near Abhiram Prabhu's place, even they had already dug 1,000 feet, no water. So there was this, like cartoon you can say, somebody opening the tap and drinking water. But that water was connected with a bore well going 1,000 feet. That's part of the picture. The other side of the picture are, let's say, animals going to drink water from a small river, but there's no water. There's no water because we've all abused and misused the water. And now we're tapping water, at 1,000 or more feet. But then when we're not able to drink this water, then what? Then we'll fall in the other picture. We'll fall. We'll also be. So very important to understand the workings of the material nature, material energy, as well as the spiritual nature, to understand both. We can only understand about the spiritual nature by reading these transcendental literatures, such as Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. And by this process, as nicely mentioned here, what actually happens is that somewhat inconceivably, just like the verse is also mentioning, this other point is also most important, that by engaging in activities of bhakti, by engaging in devotional service, and that verse is there in the first canto of the Bhagavatam, Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojitaha Janayati Ashu Vairagim Gyanam Shayad Ahaitukam. Causeless knowledge and causeless detachment, because that's our problem. We're attached, and we're also ignorant. We are attached to our ignorance. So, by Vasudeve Bhagavati, by engaging in activities of devotional service to Vasudeva, we must know whom to worship, whom to serve. Then the gradual effect that will take place is that we will actually develop understanding. Krishna will actually reveal knowledge that is already actually within us as eternal spirit souls. And we will also learn to become gradually detached, more and more detached from this material world as we rise gradually above the gunas, the modes of material nature. So in this way, this fifth canto of the Bhagavatam is very important in that it opens up a whole dimension, I mean the cosmic dimension of this material world, and and for many it challenges our normal way of seeing or understanding things very seriously, so much so that some devotees who read this fifth canto of the Bhagavatam, their faith was shaken to the point of leaving, actually. Yeah. And Prabhupada himself mentioned that this would happen because there are descriptions that are and statements in the fifth canto that are beyond our beyond our ability to fathom or to understand. But this is the point. This is one of the important points, is that who are we? This whole, just the material creation, manifestation, is so beyond our, we're not able to create anything, practically speaking. We're simply able to bring together different elements, and then we're recognized as some kind of, creator or inventor. But so these energies of the Lord and the whole material world, which also includes, we just started yesterday, he happens to be reading the fifth canto. So although the title of this chapter is The Hellish Planets, he's already heard all the description. Hellish planets are described actually in order to make us think and help us to become convinced that if I'm not in line with my nature, if I go against nature, well, I'll end up in these hellish planets. Because this is the statement also of Bhagavad Gita, that when we perform activities that are not by the Shastra, then we are committing sinful activities for which we have to suffer. We are creating karma. And this karma will lead us through unlimited repetition of birth and death. And within every time we actually take birth in the material world, Haribol, our Mahatma has come. Hare Krishna. Anyone who takes birth in the material world, by nature must suffer. And until and unless one reaches proper self-realization, culminating in Krishna consciousness, we have to again come back in another material body, which means continued suffering in the material world. For those who came after we read the verse, I will read the verse again, and if there's any comment or questions. That's it. Well, that's the one. Yeah. You can just pass it around. We were making reference to this very. Many of you might have seen it.
This is by Varnasrama Chaitanya.
Huh?
Varnasrama Chaitanya.
Oh, I say okay. Well, he sent it. He didn't make it.
No.
So here's the verse. One who is interested in liberation. Everyone who attends Bhagavatam class is interested in liberation, whether we realize it or not. One who is interested in liberation, who accepts the path of liberation and is not attracted to the path of conditional life, is called yati. Yati means devotee. Such a person should first control his mind by thinking of the virata rupa, the gigantic universal form of the Lord, and then gradually think of the spiritual form of Krishna, Satchitananda Vigraha, after hearing of both forms. Thus one's mind is fixed in samadhi. This is the formula and process to become fixed in samadhi. By devotional service, one can then realize the spiritual form of the Lord, which is the destination of devotees. Thus, his life becomes successful. Hare Krishna. Questions, comments? Clear. Okay, we'll close here for now. Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki. Jai Sri Prabhupada ki. Jai Nitai Gaura Premanandi. Hare Krishna.
Raghava Swami Maharaj ki.